To Gulf Coast Live after show. I still have the three candidates that are with me here in studio. There were a couple of questions I wanted to get to that we couldn't get to during the regular program, so I'm going to ask them now and give each of them at least 60 seconds, maybe a minute and a half to respond. Mr. Neal, I'm going to start with you. We didn't get to the issue of health care when it comes to veterans. I wanted to get your feel of what do you think about the way we treat our veterans, and what do you think we should be doing for our veterans?
I'm appalled at the way we treat our veterans. When World War II was over, there were 12 million veterans and 100 million Americans. That means 100 people for every 12 people to take care of them. We did a better job supporting our veterans in World War II than we're doing now when there's about 3 million veterans and 300 million people. We have to change that. Here's what I propose. Let's issue our veterans an identification card similar to a credit card or something that's valid for health care wherever they may be. That way, a veteran who lives in the Northeast can travel to Florida for the winter, spend their money here, but if they need treatment, they can present it to the doctor of their choice and get services immediately and without question. Similarly, for those who live here, they can travel around the country and get services too. If we continue to build veterans hospitals, we will be wasting our money on brick and mortar, something that the private sector can provide less expensive than we can as a government. So let's do it for the benefit of the veterans and the benefit of the United States citizens.
All right, Mr. George, your take on how are we treating our veterans today? What would you do differently?
Well, I was in the military myself for 5 years, and one of the reasons that I left the military is because I had something of a crisis in faith where I felt that the representatives that we had in Washington, the government that we had in Washington, wasn't considering the welfare of the soldiers, wasn't considering the ethical consequences of some of the things that their policy might have directed us in. And I think it's absolutely appalling that we have a government that never speaks of sacrifice for the people on top, but always loud sacrifice of our brave men and women in the military on the one hand, and yet on the other hand, when it comes to keeping their budget where they wanted to keep. When it comes to their budget priorities, instead of spending on the real needs of our veterans, they spend it on ideological-based wars, on bailouts, and this sort of thing. And when it comes to the health care of the veterans, if we have a universal health care system, this is going to cease to be an issue.
All right, Mr. Saunders, again, how do you feel about the way we treat veterans? Are they getting the care they need, and what would you do differently?
Well, the men and women that we send off to war to fight for our freedom really are true American heroes. And it is unfortunate, it's sad that we as a nation do not treat them the way they should be treated when they come back. For example, our soldiers that are suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome are not able to get the mental health services and sociological services that they need. Many of our wounded veterans, soldiers, are not able to get all of the health care that they need. The things that happened at Walter Reed Hospital, for example, were just absolutely unacceptable and shocking. We need to simply provide more resources for our veterans so that they can get the medical care as well as the educational benefits that they have so ably earned. And as your next congressman, I would make sure that our veterans, our men and women in the military, are getting the services that they've earned and that our country should be so proud to provide to them.
All right, Mr. George, I'm going to start with you on this last topic we didn't get to. Illegal immigration, the issue of immigration. It was a very hot topic a couple of years ago, not something discussed much nowadays, of course, because the economy and the wars seem to overshadow them. But living in Florida, these are issues that we have to deal with more than many other states, like California, New Mexico, and so forth, and Texas. But what is your stance on this issue of illegal immigration, and do you think that the government is doing enough in enforcement? And also to add to that question, I apologize, I'm going to try to clump as much as I can in this, is can we reach a comprehensive package on dealing with the issue that Americans can be happy with, but also, again, protecting our borders?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Number one, that this is a long-term issue, and one of the reasons that it's quieted down is because when we talk about the problem with immigration, we have to recognize that it's a supply and demand issue. Not only do we have a supply of illegal immigrants coming into this country, but we also have a demand for illegal cheap labor. Now, some of that demand has subsided as the job situation has worsened in this country, but this is going to continue to be a problem. And the bottom line is we need to not only enforce the laws on the books, but we need to make sure that we are taking care of not simply the physical security of the border, but looking after the administrative side. The majority of illegal immigrants that we have in this country, they come here legally and then they overstay their visas. We need to take care of that. We also need to make sure that for employers, there is a reliable database of Social Security and other employment information that they can access, and that there is actual enforcement to make sure that not only are we holding those who come to this country because they want an opportunity accountable for their illegal actions, but also those who willingly hire them to save a few bucks.
All right, Mr. Saunders, let me ask you the same question. I'll repeat it. Basically, again, what is your stance on how we are enforcing the current laws? But what would you do if you're in Congress, again, to try to create some kind of reform that everybody can at least somewhat agree on that would protect our borders and deal with this issue?
Well, obviously, we as a nation must end all illegal immigration. No country can, in the long run, sustain programs and things as long as there are unbridled, unfettered access to our borders by illegal immigrants. So the first thing we have to do is we have to stop the flow of illegal immigrants into this country. We need to do that by providing the physical barrier and the manpower on our borders to stop all illegal immigrants that way. Secondly, we need to make sure that people who are entering this country legally with visas, that once their visas have expired, that we know who they are, we know where they are, and those people are required to leave the country. It's interesting that we know when someone comes in our country on a visa, but we don't know if they leave. If we don't know if they're leaving, then we can't know whether or not they've overstayed their visa. Most of the September 11th terrorists came to this country legally and overstayed their visa. So we have to find a way, and technology is there to do that, to make sure that people who come here legally, once their visas have expired, that we make sure that they leave. The next thing we have to do is we have to identify those illegal immigrants that are here, that are gang members, that are selling drugs, that are engaged in human trafficking, that are committing crimes, and they have to be the first order of business in terms of having those people deported. The illegal immigrant from Cuba that killed Officer Whitman, for example, here in Southwest Florida, there's no reason why that person should have been permitted to be on our streets. And so we have to deploy our resources in a rational way, and those are a couple things that we need to do right away.
All right, and Mr. Neal, again, what is your take on the current situation when we're dealing with immigration reform? What do we have to do, and what would you do if you're in office?
Well, when our country was young, we needed immigrants to come to populate our country, and that's what made our country great. People of all different backgrounds and cultures that came to this country, and they settled, and they started families, and they made a new life. You know, maybe we don't need a whole lot of people coming to this country anymore. Maybe we can propagate our own species here. So what I propose is that we tweak the immigration laws a little bit. Currently, if I'm not mistaken, if a baby is born in the United States, that baby is a United States citizen. What I propose to change is if a baby is born in the United States, that baby becomes a citizen of the country of either its father or its mother. That would prevent what's commonly called anchor babies and give us a chance to control our U.S. population growth. The other thing we need to do is identify our citizens. We really have an identification program. It's called a passport, but we need to make it secure, maybe encoding it with DNA or other biometric details. Then there would be times when you would have to show your passport. You don't need to show it to drive from here to North Carolina. That's not necessary. But when you get a job, you should show your passport to show that you're eligible to work. When your child is born, you show your passport to show I'm an American citizen, my child is an American citizen. When you buy a weapon, you show your passport to show that you're eligible to bear arms in this country. These are the kinds of things I think we can do that will help to stop illegal immigration in the future.
Gentlemen, on that note, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it, and best of luck to all three of you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Okay.
And that is that.
Excellent.
All right.
So where's the next stop for this traveling road show? North Fort Myers, I believe.
Fort Myers Hike is the next one for tonight.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you inviting us.
Thank you for coming in.
All right, thank you
Officer
very much.
Saunders.
Appreciate it.
Again, as always, thanks a lot. Mr. George,
Thank you.
thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
An hour goes by fast.
Yes, it
Yeah, it
does.
does.
Thanks.
That last
Good
10
job.
minutes was a little bit of a drag. All right, I'll see you later this evening.
Okay,
See you
good enough.
tonight. Okay, you can stop rolling. We'll shoot some.
Concentrate most of them on the issue that this is an occupied military base. It's a squad.
I think you can do white balance.
Stay on the line. I want to bring in Anubhan.
You do white balance.